If you're looking for a quality set of coilovers to help improve the stance and, more importantly, the handling of your 2011 and your Challenger, but without spending thousands of dollars, well, then you should definitely consider the Ksport Kontrol Pro coilovers shown here today. Now, the Pros will feature 36-way dampening adjustment with the monotube shocks and struts, along with the adjustable pillow ball mounts, all for right around the low to mid $900 price point. Install will get a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and take roughly 4 hours or so to complete from start to finish, as we'll show you guys later in the video. So if you didn't know, Ksport is a US-based company that has been around for nearly 20 years and specialize in all things suspension. Now, they've since expanded their lineup over the years to include things like braking components and control arms, and they do really have a big presence in the drifting and Formula D world. Now, the Kontrol Pros that we have here on the table today certainly going to be geared more towards street use thanks to the slightly softer spring rates and valving, while the company's Kontrol Sport will be a little bit more geared towards track use. But with all that said, let's take a closer look at the Kontrol Pro dampers here. And at the core, guys, you're gonna find a monotube design with a single floating piston and a nitrogen charge. Now, traditionally, the monotube design will dissipate heat a little bit faster, suffer less cavitation than a twin tube design, which will ultimately result in a more consistent ride and more consistent performance. Now, dampers themselves are 36-way adjustable, guys, which will really allow you to customize the ride quality and handling based on your driving type and preference. But sticking with adjustability, guys, obviously these are adjustable in the ride height sense as well. Kind of the main reason of going with the coilover, of course, thanks to the adjustable collar and threaded body here. Now, Ksport doesn't disclose the exact amount of drop possible with these installed, but it's been my experience that with most cars, most coilovers, basically they allow you to slam the car to the ground to the point of being almost undrivable, if that's what you prefer, right? Or if you like, just keep things a little bit more modest, maybe go with a small drop compared to stock. Well, that's entirely possible here as well, and really anything in between. Now, the springs on the Kontrol Pros do feature a powder-coated design with a rate of 12K for the front spring and a 25K spring here for the rear. Now, the springs will ride on the 6061 grade aluminum collar, which is also going to be your height adjustment for the rear and will deliver excellent strength along with a very light weight. Another thing I do want to point out here with the Ksports is that they do include pre-installed pillow ball mounts for the fronts. Now, these plates or pillow ball mounts have been loaded with upper spherical bearings that are just going to allow for smooth articulation without any binding or excess noise, and will contribute to improved steering feel compared to your stock strut mounts. Now, one of the nice things about going with a coilover setup like this, as opposed to maybe just a spring and shock setup, is that you're not going to have to mess with any spring compressors when it comes time for the install. Instead, you're just simply going to yank out the stock strut assemblies, bolt the Ksports in their place, and that's pretty much it, guys. There's no modifications or crazy tools needed. Now, you should definitely get in alignment after everything's been installed and you've had your time to dial in your ride height, just so you're not chewing through your tires at an accelerated rate, and ultimately you're going to get your best handling performance out of a proper alignment. Finally, guys, Ksport does back their coilovers with a 12-month limited warranty, just in case you should run into any issues. But now we want to show you just what it takes to get the Ksports installed on your Challenger at home, and to do so, feel free to check out our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown now.
Tools used for this installation: 1/2-inch impact gun, 3/8 electric impact gun, 6-inch 3/8 extension, 1/2-inch swivel, 3/8 swivel, 18mm flex socket, 13, 16mm 3/8 sockets, 15, 18, and 21mm sockets, 1/2-inch drive extension, 20 to 22mm combination wrench, 18mm wrench, and a hammer. Hey guys, I'm going to show you how to install our coilover kit on our 2013 Challenger. It's not a bad install. I'm going to take you through all the steps. Let's get started. First thing we're going to do is remove our ball joint or loosen it up. I'm going to take my 18mm on my 3/8 electric impact gun, put it on here. I'm going to hold down. And I'm going to get the nut and just leave it on there. I'm going to take my hammer. I'm going to have to give it a good whack, just like that. Next, we're going to loosen our strut up. So now we're going to remove our sway bar nut, and then we'll remove our 18mm here that holds our strut in. So I'm going to take my 1/2-inch gun with a 21mm, remove this nut. I'll switch it over to our 18 millimeter. Remove that bolt. And now that we have those out, we'll go up to the top and we'll remove our 13 millimeters up top. So now that we have our bolts underneath loose, we're going to loosen up our 3 13 millimeters up here. We have our strut brace here. We're not going to have to remove that. What I'm going to do is loosen these up. I'm going to take 2 of them off, and the one I'm going to loosen but not take all the way off. I'm going to let it hold on, then we're going to go back down underneath. I'm going to lift up on the strut, reach my hand up here, loosen that up, and then we'll be able to push down on our control arm and remove our original strut. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to just remove our nut on our ball joint. I left it on there so that this wouldn't flop around. I'm going to release that, let this hang. It's not going to hurt if it hangs a little bit. You don't want to push down on it, but it'll be all right with the brake hose. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my stool because I'm short. I'm going to get up here, take this 13 millimeter off that we just left on there. That'll let the strut drop down. And then what I'm going to do is push down. And move it around a little bit to get it out. And once I get it out, and it takes a little bit to work it out just with the nut, I'm going to put my nut back on this, just a thread or two, just so this doesn't hang on the brake hose. It's always a good thing to do that. Now that we got our strut out, you're going to want to repeat this same procedure on the other side. So now we're going to remove our rear shock and coil spring for our new coilovers. Pretty much what I'm going to do is get up in here, take these 2 bolts out here, take the bottom, that'll get the shock loose. Then once I get that done, then I'll go over, put a pole jack under, put the lower control arm bolt out, lower it down. Now if you're at home, you can use a jack underneath here, make sure you got the car supported. But we're going to do that. I'm going to take my 16 millimeter on my 1/2 inch impact gun. I'm going to get up here and remove these 2 upper bolts. So now I'm going to take my 16 millimeter on my 1/2 inch impact gun. We're going to get up in here. Remove the 2 upper shock bolts. And now we'll remove our lower one. So now we have our upper shock bolts out. Now I'm going to take my lower one off. I'm going to use my 1/2 inch impact with an 18 millimeter and a 15 millimeter on the other side. I'm going to remove that bolt. Now we'll get a pole jack, put it underneath, and support the lower control arm. So now I'm underneath the vehicle. We're going to put a pole jack in this pocket right here. Now if you're at home, you can use floor jack, put it in this pocket to support it. And we're going to put tension on the coil spring and lift up on it a little bit. That way when we get ready to take this bolt out, we already know we have it compressed a little bit. So I'm going to take it, compress it. You can do the same with a floor jack and get some tension on it. Now that we have tension on it, there's a couple 13 millimeters here I'm going to remove to lower the exhaust down so I can get to the control arm bolt. Now that we got our coil spring compressed with our pole jack, there's a 13 millimeter bolt here holding this hanger and a 13 millimeter bolt here holding that hanger. I'm going to take my 3/8 electric impact gun with a 13 millimeter and remove both these bolts to let this exhaust hang down. And that's 2. Now that'll get it out of the way so we can get to the control arm bolt. So now I'm going to take my 15mm and my 18mm wrench, and I'm going to remove this control arm bolt. And I'm going to take that bolt all the way out. And once I have that out, we'll drop the control arm down. So now that we have our bolt out, I'm going to lower this down with our pole jack. And if you're at home and you're doing this with a floor jack, it's actually a little bit easier because the pole jack moves around a little bit. I can move this coil spring out from the pocket. Now that we have our coil spring out, I'm going to lower it down a little bit more and get the shock out. And it has to clear up top, which is a little tough. Once you get it out of that, you can pull your shock right out, and that is our removal of the rear coil spring and shock. You're going to want to repeat this same procedure on the other side, and just be careful if you're using a jack so it doesn't slip out. It can be pretty dangerous with this stuff. So I have our coil-over kit out on the bench here, and I'm going to go over some of the stuff with this as far as setting ride height, the dampening of the spring or the shocks. The rear has dampening in it too, how to adjust the ride height on the rear. So we'll get started by doing our front strut assembly, and I'll show you how to set the ride height, and I'll show you what the dampener does. So this is how the strut assembly comes in the kit. Now, if you're going to want to set your ride height, you're not going to move your coil spring here or move these. We're going to end up moving this part here. We're going to loosen that locking nut up, and we're going to turn the strut assembly like this. And that's going to set your ride height. Now, determining where you want your ride height, that's another thing that you're going to have to figure out. You're going to have to set this and try to get the car down on the ground, see how it looks, and then determine where you want your ride height to be. You are able to, once these two are locked together, you are able to spin the whole assembly in the car, but it is not an easy task. I always loosen it back up and then just give the strut assembly a couple more turns to make it so that I can get the ride height to where I want it. We're going to set it kind of near stock, but just a little bit lower. And I'm just going to do that by measuring this compared to the other strut assembly and then go from there. Now, this does have a dampening on it for how hard or soft you want the shock itself to compress, release. Now, I'm basically going to, for demonstration here, we're going to put this and we're going to count the turns from open to close. So we'll go all the way one way till it stops, go all the way back, count the turns, and then I'm going to put it in the middle and start there. I think that's a safe place to start with this one. Now we'll go on to the back one and I'll show you how to set that up for ride height. So now we're on to our rear shock and coil spring assembly. We're going to reuse our lower rubber perch mount from our control arm. I'm going to take my coil spring and just turn that in till it goes into the stop right there. Once we get that done, then we're going to go on to our top mount. You're going to see this is going to be your adjustability of where your ride height comes from. Once you get it set, you're going to want to take your locking nut, lock it with a spanner wrench, same as the front strut. That has a spanner wrench nut on it too, so you can use them to lock it down. We're going to kind of eyeball the old coil spring assembly and maybe drop it like an inch to start. Hopefully that'll be a good place when we get our ride height down. And then we're going to go on to our shock, and you're going to be able to adjust the ride height on your shock by just turning this knob right here, or just turning the bottom of the shock. Once you screw it out, screw it in, it will end up making your ride height where you need it. It also has a dampener on it here. The dampener, I turn all the way to where it stops. Once I get it to where it stops, I'm going to count the clicks and go back and put it in the middle to start there. That's a good process. Now that we went through all this, we're going to take it and start installing it on our vehicle. So now that we're done on our bench over there, I'm going to bring my strut over here and we're going to install it on the front of the car. I'm going to loosen our ball joint nut up and just let this hang down here. It's not going to hurt if it just hangs for a little bit on the brake hose. I'm going to take the strut assembly and we're going to fish it up through here. And once I get it in place, I'm going to reach up here, take one of our 13mm nuts, get it started. That'll hold our strut in place for now. I'm going to take my upper ball joint there and hook that back up. Put the nut back on that. And you're going to have to adjust this for ride height. You might have to loosen it up in the top, drop it down again to get to wherever you want your car to sit. We have it kind of set where the factory gave it to us, so we're going to leave it here. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to lower the car down. I'm going to put a jack under, jack it up to get my bolt started and to get my sway bar link started in the back of the strut. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the whole spindle, and I'm going to pick it up so I can start my strut bolt in there that holds the strut into the lower control arm. Then once we get that done, then we'll go over and we'll get the jack and we'll jack up on our sway bar. We'll get that into the back of our strut. So all I'm going to do is lift up, line it up, put that bolt through, put our nut on the back of it, and then I'll get my gun and we'll tighten it up. I'm going to take my 1/2-inch drive of my 18mm, and I'm going to take my 22mm on the other side, hold the nut, tighten it. Now we'll lower it down and get our sway bar link put back in. So now we're going to install our sway bar link. I thought I was going to have to lower it down and jack up. If you do have to lower it down to get this to line up, you're going to want to put the jack on the sway bar right here out towards the end. That'll give you the ability to raise it up. Ours actually lined up pretty good, so I'm just going to end up installing our nut, and I'm going to take my 1/2-inch impact gun with a 21mm and tighten that up. Now that we have that tight, we'll go up and we'll tighten our ball joint. So now we're going to tighten our upper ball joint back up. I'm going to take my 18mm on my 3/8 electric impact gun. Now that we have that tight, I'm going to go up and tighten our 3 13mm up top that hold the top of the strut to the frame. So now we're going to install our 3 13mm nuts up top. I already installed one, that's what held the strut in place. I'm going to take my 3/8 electric impact gun and tighten these up. It's got a 13mm on it. And now that I have those 3 done, our strut's installed. Now you're going to want to make sure that anytime you do suspension work, you're going to want to torque things to manufacturer's specs on all the suspension parts. Now you're going to just want to repeat the same procedure on the other side. Now I'm going to start by installing our rear shock. I'm gonna sit it down in place. I'm gonna take my 2 bolts, stick these back up in. And once I get them started, now we'll install our coil spring, then we can start lifting back up and seeing where everything ends up being. Now we're going to take and install our coil spring. I have my coupler on, I have a rubber seal up top that comes in the kit. I have our lower seal that was from the factory. So I'm going to take my coil spring, slide it into place, make sure it seats down in. Now once I get it down in place, I'm going to take my pole jack, start raising it up. Once I get it up pretty close, I'll be able to tell where the shock's going to be, if I have to lengthen the shock. And if you're doing this with a floor jack, just be careful. So I have it up in place. Now I can adjust my shock, get my shock so the bolts go in. I'll put my other bolt in there, and then we'll be able to start putting our exhaust back up. So now we'll tighten up our two 16 millimeters for our shocks. Now we'll go finish our exhaust. So now we're going to put our lower control arm bolt back in. And once you get it so far, you might have to adjust it a little bit or use a pry bar. Once you get it lined up, I'm going to take my 18 millimeter, my nut, tighten that up. Now we'll put our shock bolt in. Line our, I'm going to take my impact with my 15 millimeter and my 18 millimeter wrench. Tighten that up. Now we'll go back up and tighten our upper shock bolts up. So now that we got our upper shock bolts tight, I'm going to reinstall our exhaust by putting our 13 millimeters in. Put that one back up in. Now that's tight, our exhaust done, and that wraps up this installation. Okay guys, and with that, that wraps up this review and install of our Ksport Kontrol Pro Coil-Over kit for 11 to 21 Challengers, excluding all-wheel drive and Demon and Hellcats. Thanks for watching, and for all things Challenger, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.